Hi, I'm Trevor Conquergood. Welcome to this week's RNK Software Club's video of the week, and in our video this week, I'm going to show you how I digitized this cute little snowflake design, and this is what my stitch out turns out like. Now, the image for this is actually a JPEG backdrop image that came with the software, and that's what I started with. And so if I was to click on like a new workspace and then use our backdrop tool, so this tool right here is simply the backdrop tool, which when you first click on it, it will allow you to select a backdrop. And it starts with the ones that come with the software. That's where I found this snowflake. However, you can use this same tool to navigate to any location on your computer and then open, that image, and all kinds of formats like, bitmaps, JPEGs, TIFFs, that kind of thing can be opened up with this tool. So once you've opened up your backdrop, the tool becomes the way to, select the backdrop. So notice if I click on the select tool that I no longer have my backdrop selected, and I can't click it to pick it up or anything. So if you wanted to select it and perhaps move it to a different location in your embroidery hoop, or maybe even just to resize it, you need to click back on your backdrop tool. And so when you select on your backdrop tool, you can, select it now and then move it and or resize it. You can do that with the corner handles to resize your artwork, or you can use the handles here in the properties box, not handles, but actually parameters that you would type in exactly how tall do you want it. And so this will pick up whatever current measurement you're using on your rulers. So if I switch mine to inches, then I'll be able to work in my properties box in inches. So if you knew you wanted it 3 inches tall, you would type 3. And then you can click apply. And so this is the idea. And when you click on your select tool, you let go of the backdrop and you're no longer working on, and it really becomes part of the background. And as you probably know, a JPEG is simply an image that's made up of dots of colors, and you can see that there's all kinds of different kind of shades of blue and white in this graphic. And now I have the sort of desire to digitize it and make it into embroidery, because what a JPEG does not have is shapes. And as you know, to create the embroidery design, what I need are shapes, right? Shapes that we fill in with stitches. Now, there's a variety of tools, obviously, to do that with, and which is the correct ones to use really kind of depends on what you're trying to create and the quality of the artwork. And as much as this seems like really high quality artwork, and it's not bad, it's not super high quality, and you can tell that when you get close to it, when it looks quite pixelated and not as smooth. So clip art, yes, but not necessarily a super high resolution clip art. That said, can you use it to digitize? Well, absolutely. This is perfect for what I want to do, which is to use the digitizing tools. But a lot of people, I think, will first try things like the wizard or the magic wand, and those are also proven methods that work well. I can click on my magic wand, click on the color blue, and it will trace it. It does the best that it can based upon the size of the image and the resolution, because remember, if I look closely, it does have to decide where does the color blue end and where is this other gray color start, but it does the best it can to trace. And because of that, you can now take that sort of traced artwork and notice that it's completely vectorized your snowflake. You could see it as a filled in or see it as an outline. Can you embroider it? Well, of course. Like any shape, all of the styles of embroidery are down at the bottom. And so if I click on run stitch, it will run stitch outline around all of the elements of the snowflake. And so that's pretty successful. I could also click on standard fill, and it would fill in all of the elements of the snowflake. So now it comes down to, all right, so I can automatically digitize my snowflake. However, if you look at the one that I had digitized and show you, I took control of some of the stitch directions to create the dimension of this snowflake. And I remember when I did it, because I actually only digitized one section of it. So like these 4 little stripes, that big stripe, and one of these kind of V's, and then copy and paste in a circle fashion to finish the design. So it didn't take really long. But to do all that, what I'm telling you is I did the digitizing. So unlike when we use the magic wand or the wizard hat where the software does all the work, I did it. And so today's topic is really about that. It took a long time to kind of get to that. But what I want to tell you about is the toolbox right up at the top here called the Digitizing Tools. And notice the little triangle beside this little green circle means that there's more tools underneath it. When you click on that sort of triangle, it will fly open and show you the Digitizing Tools. There's manual stitch, run stitch, satin stitch, classic satin stitch, steel stitch, complex fill, and applique. And these are basically a one-step tool. If you click on run stitch, you start clicking to draw the line of the run stitch. And you can use whichever drawing mode you use, but I'm currently using the standard one, which means if I click, I'll get corner points. However, if I hold down the control key, my points can be rounded. And as long as I hold down the control key, I'll get a smooth line until I let go of the control key, and then I'll go back to doing kind of like corner points. And when you right click, you're done drawing and you have made a run stitch. And it starts where you started and it finishes where you finished. And you could do the next one and just click, 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 and then right click to finish. And so digitizing means you go from the points that you click all the way to the embroidery stitches, depending on the tool that you choose. So the first one is called manual, and the thing with manual is it will only put down needle points if you click them. And it won't put any in between. If I make a really long stitch and then a couple really short ones, that's exactly what the software will make. Look, I'll just select that shape. Maybe we'll turn off 3D and turn on the needle points. And you can see the only needle points that got made were the exact ones that I clicked my clicks and none of the other ones. Whereas with a normal run stitch, as I created here, the software puts a stitch point every set stitch length, which of course you control in your properties box. So here's the stitch length of 2.5. If I change that to 5, then they'll be further apart. Whereas with this manual one, I don't have that option. Manual makes stitches. So I can digitize stitches, manual, or run stitches. Now the next two are the satin tools. A satin is what I use to make these little sort of sections of the design. And so basically what I did was I took that tool and then I clicked to start my sort of drawing. And I come in here and I draw like the side of it. Now I'm going to go off the map here and draw a point that doesn't exist in the artwork right there. And then I'm going to put one right there. And essentially I'm done now. I can right click. And what I need to do is tell the software it's waiting for an inclination. It actually tells me right here in the properties, in this little status bar, notice it says enter inclination line. So I'll click and drag to enter at least one. And you can have more than one if you want to have 2 or 3 or whatever. You can have as many as you want. And then you right click and it gives you a green point, which you get to choose as your entry point. And then it gives you the red, which you get to choose as your exit point. And so now the stitches show up. See that? So do it again. Let's just click right here and then right there and then right there and then right there and right click and give it a stitch direction and a stitch direction and right click and tell it to start here and, oh, I don't know, finish there. And so it connects from the first one to the next one. And so pretty cool, hey, how you can digitize exactly as you see it. Now, the next one was the run stitch, right? So now I go from here. If you want to go and walk to some other part of your design, you use your run stitch tool, and you go over there. That's not logical what I did, by the way, because normally, here, let's just hit our backspace tool, backspace, 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 back. What you probably want to do is walk to the next piece, right? And maybe just go to there and stop. That'll make sure that there's never a jump in between this one and that one. I didn't put any between these two. Notice when I turn off 3D that you can see the dotted line, which represents the jumps from one sort of segment to the next. And that's really close together. And so without getting too technical today, if you measure it with your ruler, and it says that it's 0.03 of an inch, and so I'm struggling, so I'll go to metric for this one, because I like to measure my small things. Yeah, so it's like 0.8 of a millimeter, you guys. It's not even so there. The machine won't need to have any additional needle points in between here and there. And when you save your design to the PES format, if you have this little lock checked off right here, the auto lock stitches, it tells the software to check through the design and decide if a lock stitch is required or not, and you don't really have to worry about it. So it won't put one here, but rather than having it jump from here to there, if I measured here to the next one, well, now I'm like 7 millimeters, and that would actually cause my machine to want to, create like a jump and a tie off and a tie in and a thread trim. And that's just not needed, right? Because if you can sew over there, why not? This is like, called pathing. Anyway, let's get back to digitizing. So your digitizing toolbox has the satin tool where you draw the outline and then you right click. You draw at least one stitch direction, you right click, you tell it where to start sewing, where to finish sewing, and it makes the stitches. And that is one of the tools in the toolbox. That's for satin. The other one is called the classic satin. And this is for people that learned kind of using old-fashioned digitizing software. So I'll choose that tool and show how it's different, because notice now what I'll do is when I click here, I need to click over here next because the first two clicks set the stitch direction. And now you come back to side one and you click on side one again and then on side two again. And when you did that, you set a second stitch direction. Now, when I right click, it will start where I started right there, and it will finish where I finished right there. And so in this case, I'd probably need to select it and use the shape tool to make the ending point kind of come back to the beginning again. And so this is called digitizing, kind of old school manual. The classic satin tool works best when you put the run stitch in between. So I'll click run and click from here and then walk over here and then finish right there. And then when I go to the classic satin tool and I click right there to start, I've already told the software where to put the green point. I've already told the software the first stitch direction. Now I come down my line. I'm going to go right across all those ones to the center and click and click. And I set my second stitch direction. And when I do it, I set the parameters of the edges at the same time. Anyway, you right click and you've made the next column. And so here, let's turn off the stitch marks and you can see what I'm creating. And so when you create it yourself, it's a little bit more time consuming in the beginning because you make those shapes. However, the design sews exactly the way you intend it to because you break it down into the individual shapes yourself. What have I not shown you? So we've seen the manual, the run, the satin, the classic satin, the steel. Well, basically the steel, if you click and then right click, it makes a column that starts where you started and finishes where you finish. And so you can click and click and click and right click and it makes a column. The column, of course, is a steel stitch based upon the line that you drew, and you can set the width of it within the parameters up here at the top, density, all of different things that you can control in a line. I'll just delete that line. It doesn't match with the artwork anyways, right? So let's just click on the delete tool and get rid of it. Maybe even that one too. So the next one in the toolbox that we haven't looked at is the complex fill. Now, complex fill is kind of more of a, okay, so let's just see how to use it. First of all, it's back to drawing the outline of the shape. So the first step of using complex fill is draw your outline. Now, right click, and it immediately puts down a 0 degree stitch angle, which if you don't want, you can simply click and drag to replace it. And whatever angle it puts, you can finish. Now, I guess by clicking and dragging, you draw it. And as soon as I finish clicking and dragging, notice I got the green entry point, which I can click, and the red exit point, which I can click, and it makes the stitches immediately. So let me do it again. Click, 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 click. Oh, remember, you can always hold Control down if you want curvy shapes. You don't need to close the shape. The software will close it based upon the first point and the last point. You can just assume that there will be a line that goes between them. And so you right click and it puts down a 0 direction, which is fine if you want it to go at 0, unless you want a different direction, in which case you click and drag to draw the direction. When you let go, it gives you the green entry point. It gives you the red exit point, which you click and click. And when you've made that series of click, click, clicks, it makes the stitches. Are you with me? Click, 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 draw the outline, right click. It gives you the stitch direction. If you just leave it at 0, you can right click. It gives you the green entry point. If you don't care where it goes, you can right click. It gives you the red exit. If you don't care where it goes, you can right click. And so you made a standard fill, but you just didn't take any control of the angle or the entry or the exit. So this is called digitizing, and this is your digitizing toolbox. And these are the tools that you can use to create embroidery without, I guess, the alternative to doing this is more of a 2-step process. So I'll show you what I mean by that. Because if you take the artwork drawing tool and you click and you draw a line, again, you can hold down that Control key. All that's based upon the mode of drawing that I choose. We can talk about that in another video, the different modes of drawing. But let's just assume you're all going to use standard mode to start. But again, when you right-click, it's done drawing. And I drew a line, and that line is now artwork. It's not embroidery. I didn't make it from drawing to embroidery. I drew the artwork. And now if you want it to be embroidery, you can come down here and click on run stitch to make it a run stitch, or click on standard fill to make it a complex fill. So the difference is when you digitize it, you have the benefit of being able to take control of the stitch directions, the entry points, the exit points. It's more efficient. And when you're somebody who loves to create, and you create a lot and you create all day, it's actually the more efficient way to do it. The main thing is, whether it's efficient or not, is it's the way to take the full control. Yeah, and that's essentially how I digitized my snowflake design. Like I said, I would have made one group of objects, and then they would probably take me down to about there. Oh, that's too far. So let's see, where was the last one? So that's the first one of the second group. So you can see here how I kind of originally did it as one little, oh, there needs to be, oh, I see what I did was these come afterwards. So I did all of the, sort of like this one, and then I did the, let's just watch it sew out in the sewing simulator to see how it stitches out. And so maybe I'll just speed that up a little bit and give you an idea of how it kind of did the design. So what I'm telling you is I digitized one of these, copied it, pasted it, and rotated it. And then when I got to the end of those, I did these individual ones. And again, they can be copy and pasted, or you can digitize each one. Really doesn't matter. But I hope that's interesting to you guys. As you know, I love to create embroideries, and I love all of our tools. But eventually, you're going to want to learn to take control. And that's what today's video was all about, the Digitizing Toolbox. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, have a great day. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.